So that's the main problem, and games never used to be short of charm. Here's Rab and Ryan of Consulvania with a look back at some warmer times.
Retro is not what you think retro is, right? I bet you elsewhere on this show, right, in other parts of this show, people are going to embarrass themselves by mentioning...
Them as well.
I'm attacking everybody, right? People are going to embarrass themselves by mentioning Mario and Zelda. That's not our past. That's not our past. We had a Mario, the Great Guiana Sisters. That was our Mario, a rip-off of Mario. That was it. It was better than Mario. The real British retro was all about innocence. It was all about guys who didn't do it for money. You've got to remember that these, in America, it was big corporations. In Japan, big corporations churning out these games. And in Britain, just hobbyists, just guys up in their bedroom. The real British retro is about games like Hover Bother. In Hover Bother, you were a middle-aged man, right?
No, a middle-aged man who just happened to be a spy or a superhero. Just a middle-aged man.
Just a middle-aged man who had to mow his garden, right? So you would go and get a lawnmower and mow your garden. That's what the game was, moving back and forth, just trying to mow strips of lawn, but you'd borrowed somebody's lawnmower, so your neighbour was coming to get his lawnmower back, right? So you had to avoid him, and you had to avoid an annoying dog as well.
Tell me, my heart's racing. For some reason, they had a thing about eggs in the 80s. The amount of Spectrum games I played that had eggs, or were about eggs, or you were collecting eggs.
Why did we bother with these games? Jet Set Willy's the kind of game that would only be made in Britain. It was about a guy who was cutting about inside his house, trying to avoid his wife. And the great thing about Jet Set Willy was you couldn't complete it. It was broke. You couldn't complete it, you couldn't finish it. And that's what I love. That's what's more British than somebody making a game and getting to a point in it and going, nobody's going to get this far anyway, fuck it.
Or you would have a game like Penetrator, which was a shoot 'em up, and you completed it. You mastered that art of mapping the trajectory of the bomb so that you became a master of bombing things, which was crucial to finish the game. You'd get to the end level, you'd bomb that big supply of explosives, you go, magic, you get a fireworks display at the end of the game, go, done it, finally done it, completed it, and then it goes, right, now play the levels backwards.
Brilliant. That's brilliant.
And you go, aye, all right. Right, fine, aye, right, I'll do it backwards. And then you play it backwards, and it goes, now play it forwards again.
Brilliant.
And then it never ends. It never ends. Backwards, forwards, forever.
That was the beauty of retro. The charm of retro was that sound, the surreal element of it. A game I loved was Marble Madness that had this beautiful kind of plinky-plonky kind of crystal sound. Sounded kind of like a chandelier slowly falling down the stairs. You would roll a wee ball about this map. Beautiful, beautiful kind of wee worlds that you would step into, and they're all in your memory. They're in wee spaces in your memory, all these beautiful places. And now, games like Gears of War and all these kind of things, they all look as if they're set in the same place, this browny, greeny, muddy, real-looking place. There's nowhere special for them to go. There's no specialness about that. Games are shite.
Casual games, video games aimed at novice players, often scarcely considered traditional games at all.
Right now, casual games are probably the most rapidly expanding sector of the gaming market, and it's largely thanks to little magic sticks like these. Ooh.
I'm not a huge fan of the Wii, largely because sitting around on my sofa flapping my arms around isn't my idea of entertainment. Although it does make some games, such as the brightly coloured Cooking Mama here, accessible to newcomers, because you're performing actions rather than jabbing a complex array of buttons.
Of course, the next step is to remove the buttons and controllers completely.
Witness Project Natal from Microsoft, in which the controller is you.
Here we see the outright creepy promotional video for Project Natal, in which it seems you have to sort of groom a boy called Milo.
Hiya Milo, how you doing?
Hi Claire, you okay?
Actually, I'm a bit nervous.
You? Nervous? I don't believe it.
Presumably instead of a high score table there's some sort of offenders register.
You've got to put these goggles on.
Goggles?
As computers and consoles grow ever more powerful and the games market grows more diverse, so there's an increasing number of games that fit about 10 categories at once or none. For instance, how do you define the bizarre wind-em-up flower in which you control a breeze blowing petals around? Or the serene safari photography game Africa? There are countless pacifist titles out there, but the broadcast media tends to ignore them in favour of highlighting more violent fare.
Whenever any new technology comes along, it inevitably causes controversy.
Once upon a time, TV was the bogeyman as adults fretted over its negative influence on the kiddywink generation.
We teachers feel that television is bad for children.
Despite being a less sedentary and arguably more challenging pastime than television, video games have been demonised more than the Gogglebox ever was.
Of course, even some early games were asking for it, such as the ghoulish arcade game Death Race, in which you had to squish people to survive.
It caused an outcry in America, although the visuals were so basic, the actual cabinet was more grisly than the game itself. Here's a rare example of an early commercial controversial game, Beat 'em and Eat 'em on the Atari 2600, in which you control two naked women there at the bottom of the screen. You have to move them left and right to swallow semen being ejaculated by a man on the roof. It's basically just simulating an average Saturday night in Plymouth.
Explicitly adult games tended to be flogged in small ads in the back of computer mags or illicitly swapped around on pirated tapes, but they did exist.
Take this charming Portuguese game, Sex Crime, on the ZX Spectrum, in which you play a man who has to run around a hospital having sex with women in comas without getting caught. It's all right, it's not as good as the real thing, obviously.
These early nasty games tended to look so basic they were more like tasteless scribbles than anything else, the equivalent of a knob scrawled on an exercise book.
They were largely ignored, partly because they were dreadful and partly because it was just widely accepted that adults were using home computers and playing games, not just kids.
But by the 90s something had changed. The graphics had improved for one thing, and the success of Mario and Sonic meant that games were largely perceived by the rest of the media as being children's toys.
Consequently, if anything even vaguely grown up reared its head in video game form, it could only be processed as a terrible threat to our youth.
MPs have criticised the makers of a new video computer game after reports said it featured the mutilation of women. One MP said it shouldn't be sold in this country because it would have a bad effect on children.
One sequence in Night Trap in particular, in which a girl is stalked and seized by ghoulish figures, then put in a metal clamp around her neck and dragged off screaming, has provoked a hostile reaction.
Despite the hostile reaction, Night Trap was actually a fairly daft and broad horror movie spoof in which you played a CCTV operator trying to spring traps and save women from some stupid alien intruders in masks.
What it undoubtedly wasn't was an educational tool aimed at teaching children to maim and to murder and to mutilate. Only an idiot could possibly think that it was.
It's absolutely outrageous to teach children to maim and to murder and to mutilate in the way that this video undoubtedly does.
Video games are turning many young people into addicts and making them aggressive, according to a new report.
I think that it does change behaviour a lot. Because, like, if your mum said to you, you've got to do homework, I'd say, no, I'm playing my Game Boy, wait till I finish my game or something.
Yeah, of course, in the old days when everyone played with, I don't know, wooden pegs, kids couldn't wait to do their homework. Still, at least video games weren't, I don't know, sending out subliminal messages that you could condemn as manipulative and sinister.
A computer game that sends out subliminal messages has been condemned as manipulative and sinister.
This is the game that's causing alarm among parents.
Really? Really, is it?
What they're trying to do is to affect the child's mind beneath the level of consciousness, and that seems to me an immoral thing to do.
The computer game showing children at school being shot at has been on sale in Britain.
Oh no, what sick horror is this?
Violent computer games are nothing new, but this one is more shocking than most.
Well, really, it's obviously a deliberately jokey and tasteless shareware game, the sort of thing that, I don't know, might be flogged out the back of a computer magazine for 50p. But don't ask me, ask someone who'll be horrified by these reports.
I'm horrified by these reports.
It's amazing he can stand still while his knee's jerking like that.
Throughout this period, games couldn't do anything right.
Although, to be fair, when journalists do interview games players themselves, they don't do the pastime any favours.
That's the whole point of games, is to be realistic, but not be sort of realistic at the same time. So you can kill people, but not think about it in the morning.
Horrified, uncomprehending adults claim that this obsessional solitary vice is producing a generation of teenage mutants suffering from a form of cultural autism.
Children get so hooked that beating their last high score is all that matters.
And my little cousin, bro, every time I go in his house, he's playing the game. He thinks he's the man on Streets of Rage. Every minute he's beating me up, bro, and he's saying, yeah, and then all this...
Another inarticulate gamer. Why can't they ask someone, I don't know, a bit more middle class?
As well as playing about 2 hours a day, Matthew has also managed to pass grade 3 piano, and he claims to enjoy a bit of Dickens. He seems the perfect, well-rounded ambassador for the games he plays.
He's only about 2, but who knows? Maybe he'll say something cute.
A beat 'em up is a game when where you beat people up. You punch them or kick them and jump on them, break their necks, smash them over the head with box.